Yeah. Slightly reworked to be more multiplayer. That would have been so cool because there's not really a banished multiplayer map.
No, there isn't. 343, that's a copyright idea. You can't have that.
Copyright.
Copyright.
Lawyer up.
When Forge comes out, it's ours.
Yeah.
You pay us for the map. You know what I just did? I didn't even think about it. I opened the beer already. Oh no, that was supposed to be for the intro. That's fine. Well, for those of you playing along at home, this is Let's Argue, the series where we take your hot Halo takes, your normal opinions, and your crazy ideas, and we agree or disagree and tell you why. We had over 1,000 submissions between the Twitter thread and the YouTube thread, and some of you probably need to seek help. We picked out a couple for today, and we'll go through them here.
Yes, let's do it. I got my Monster Energy drink. I'm all set. Is this the part where you show the brand of beer?
Oh yeah! Oh my god! I almost forgot. Yeah, if you're drinking along at home, today's beer is a Red Stripe. This is a Jamaican lager.
Ooh.
And whenever I go to a bar, I ask what's on special, and you'd be surprised like how many you go to a bar and ask what's the special, and some of those people that look at you like you're crazy. They're like, special? What do you mean special? But the lady at the bar she was like, I'll give you a Red Stripe for $2. So I had like 5 Red Stripes.
Damn, dude, that's killer deal. At a bar too.
All right, we'll jump into our first take here. This is from Lady Red Cosplay. She says, despite Forge playing an important role in Halo multiplayer, it's held back by how limited it is. Ackman, you're the away team, so you're gonna have first crack.
The away team. It's hard. I agree that it does hold back certain parts of Halo multiplayer. And part of the reason is when I think about StarCraft custom games, Warcraft custom games, Gary's mod, all the modding stuff that's available on PC that was available back in like the 90s and early 2000s, I can't help but think allowing players to basically create their own campaigns or having those modding tools would be that next step, which I hope would be, not that Forge holds back the game in any way, you know what I mean? But it hasn't gotten to that point where, you know, people can literally make like their own custom campaigns.
You're right. Forge is an amazing tool, but it's not the same tool that, it's not like a mod tool. Yeah, that's that on the nose. It's not a modding tool. I think further when I read this take, I agree to the extent that Halo really has become dependent on Forge. And I think Halo 5 is a great example of that. I mean, it was great that there was so much community-made content in Halo 5's matchmaking rotations, but think how crutched up Halo 5 was on Forge content. And with Halo Infinite's release having such a limited pool of maps and an even tighter, it feels, a tighter belt around the total active game modes, it does feel like 343 is kind of waiting for user-generated content to pick up and fill in the gaps of this game, which it very well might be able to do, and that might be great and dandy, but it's a little risky, I think, relying on Forge to carry all that weight for you. So I like the idea here that maybe Halo should be standing stronger on its dev content and not its UGC.
Yeah, it can go both ways, honestly. Like the content that 343 makes should obviously be strong, but you lose nothing by giving players more options to create the content for you, whether they utilize it and share it officially or like just through the file share and browser. I mean, 99% of my time spent in those old Warcraft and StarCraft games is just the custom games that people like you and me made. Like that's 99% of the time I've spent in those games. So
and you know, it might be part of, you know, Halo's history as a console game. Modding on console is like crime, but modding on PC, which is kind of the name of the game, and Halo's, and I know it's been on PC in the past, but I would really say MCC on Steam is Halo's first majorly immersive PC experience, especially if we're talking about like modern PC gaming. And I think the franchise is still a little virgin to what modding can do and the benefits of centralizing access to mods. So MCC, I think, made some good progress there. It's not perfect, and hopefully whatever MCC has learned improves and then gets translated to Infinite, for sure.
Absolutely. So you agree as well?
I agree. That's a double agree on this one.
Double agree.
Our next take is from Joseph Jordan. He says, here's a hot take. I believe that a player versus enemy experience is integral to Halo's identity, and Halo Infinite should take a bigger advantage of its banished and Spartan enemies for PvE multiplayer experience.
Now is it your turn to go first, or?
Yeah, I guess it'd be my court first. I'm gonna tentatively agree. I'll do agree, and I'll make the text. I usually make it green. This time it'll be gray, because Firefight, for the sake of Firefight, is not that interesting, and I think Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach for me are like, yeah, Firefight's there. I never want to play it because it takes forever and it's not that fun compared to what I could be doing in PvP.
I would have to disagree, but I agree with the second part. Halo Infinite should take a bigger advantage of its banished and Spartan enemies. Like, there should be a PvE mode eventually. I would love that. However, it's never been something so integral to its identity that I feel like the game's lost without it. Like Halo, like Halo 5 was lost without Firefight. It wasn't. It just sucked that so many things from previous games weren't in that. You know, Halo 4 had Spartan Ops, and I would not consider that integral to enjoying Halo 4 in any capacity. So I agree more effort should be put into fleshing out that kind of experience because it is fun. Like, if you go into Reach, I got this one custom game where you set super fast speed, get everyone gravity hammers and high gravity or low gravity, and you just fly around smacking everything, and that's a lot of fun. So I would love to see. It's kind of similar to the Forge, you know. There's so much more they could do with it, and with all the pieces intact. Like, if you give people the ability to make their own Firefight game types and share that, it just creates so much endless replayable content.
Yeah, as an extension of the multiplayer experience, I agree it can have value. Integral? No.
Disagree.
Disagree.
Oh man, that would be so cool if you had like Invasion Firefight, where you progress through a big ass multiplayer map or a level, and you go to new areas.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
They almost came up with that in the second to last mission, in the Infinite campaign. You know, where you progress to the next little set piece and then you go to the next one. Holy shit! We just discovered a great $1 million idea. Yeah,
don't let any all forgers. We've already capitalized on that. We copyrighted it.
You'll have to pay us for the rights.
You think you can out-lawyer us? You'll be surprised.
Yeah.
You got me thinking about that campaign that campaign sequence where you're about to go fight Escharum. I'm surprised one of those spaces didn't become a multiplayer map.
Yeah. Slightly reworked to be more multiplayer. That would have been so cool because there's not really a banished multiplayer map.
No, there isn't. 343, that's a copyright idea. You can't have that.
Copyright.
Copyright.
Lawyer up.
When Forge comes out, it's ours.
Yeah.
You pay us for the map. Nico says, by putting barriers between people who want to communicate with other players, 343 have compromised a core facet of what makes multiplayer fun. Removing talking to enemies, no indicator of who is talking, breaking up teams at the end of a match, no pre- or post-game lobby, VC off by default. Okay.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would agree. And there's a second part to this, but there is something just inherently fun and Maybe it was because Xbox Live was more of a novelty back in the day that these features are so like looked back at with nostalgia and fondness of like playing Halo 2, killing them, and then hearing their proximity voice of like, oh, that's total bullshit. Or, you know, hearing that. And I think a lot of people, they think back to those experiences and when they had that for the first time and how magical it was. And I do think some part of that is still very important in just making a game kind of feel like a community, even if there's going to be toxic parts of it. Compromise the core facet of what makes multiplayer fun. I mean, I don't necessarily agree that it compromises anything. It's more like you miss it and you like that, and it would just kind of make it feel more community based. I would say overall, 343 have compromised the community and social aspects of Halo, because if you go to the community tab in the menu, literally nothing there is working as intended, right? You can't share modes, you can't upload things, the theater's kind of busted. So if you were to change this a little bit, I'd 100% agree if it was like the community aspect.
Yeah, when it comes to things like the voice chat and the post-game, pre-game lobby and stuff, so I'm gonna have to actually disagree, and this is the alternate perspective, I think. Unfortunately, so you touched a little bit about like toxicity, and you're like, oh well, unfortunately there'll be some level of toxicity. Well, I think if you are somebody who is often the subject of that toxicity, these things mean a lot to you. Like, I'm a grown man now. I don't think it's funny or entertaining or like haha hee hee to be called like the N-word while I'm trying to play Halo, right?
Absolutely not.
Anybody who plays and this is what gets me when you bring up this topic, is that people act like it doesn't happen. Like, why are we pretending like it doesn't happen? That doesn't benefit anybody. We can acknowledge it and talk about it, I think, is the best way to get through it. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that kills a game experience for me. And while I am not like a woman, or I'm not Jewish, or I'm not Asian or Mexican, I mean, like, it does not take any of you watching very long to think about all the things someone has said in a game chat that is directed as an insult to these people. And when you're a kid, you probably care a little less. Like, these memories you have are probably from when you're 12, 13, 14. I get it, I was there, right? I didn't care maybe as much. But now as an adult, it means something different to me. So yeah, in Halo Infinite, I actually have, and this is true in MCC too, I have all voice chats just turned off. Because the moment someone starts spewing that toxicity, it dampens my mood. It ruins my playing experience. So I don't feel like too much is missed there. But yeah, some of those little older quirky things like partying up after a game, or like randomly conjoining with people you've previously played with, those were cool. I think to some degree though, and Ackman, maybe you can comment on this, I think that time is past. Like, if you're somebody around our age, right, you probably have a circle of friends you play these games with, and that whole party up thing, play with strangers, message to all whoever recent players, that was in the full swing when people had not formed their tight in crowds just yet. And a lot of gamers... That
was back when people had to pay for Ventrilo servers to be able to basically use Discord. They had to pay for that,
Right. So now it's just so easy to be linked up with your buddies and you guys play, and that's it. It's your game night. There's no interruptions. You're hanging out, talking to each other, and your gaming time is probably more limited. So you're not out here looking for randoms. You're not trying to recruit for a clan anymore. And I think a lot of people can relate to being in that position in the past. I don't think it's as prominent in modern gaming as it used to be. So while it was cool, maybe it's not that important anymore.
I will tackle that. I think there's two parts. So I want to talk about trash talk first, and then move on to the party up thing. The unfortunate reality is that while trash talk is something that can never really escape gaming, the unfortunate part of it is people use it to specifically attack certain people and based on like things you can't control.
Right.
Whereas I think shit talk based on like your performance
that's good.
That's fine, you know? Like if you throw out a classic Xbox Live insult, you know, but there's nothing creative, funny, interesting about just shouting racial slurs or saying go make me a sandwich, woman, you know, there's nothing.
Yeah.
I never found that to be like, that was the glory days of Xbox Live. You know?
Well, that's crazy. There's so many people who think that, like, oh man, my glory days. You're 26 now. Or, like, you're 27. Like, you're a grown man. Like, you have to understand that that's not okay.
Cool. Honestly, but watching clips on YouTube, it's kind of like why people watch reality TV, just to see what an absolute train wreck it is. Yeah. But the problem with, you know, voice features, it's like, you know, yeah, you can mute it and you can exert some control over what you hear, but when that really bad stuff happens, it does kind of turn people off to the idea of voice chat with the enemy and, you know, that sort of thing. Once you experience something like really bad or awful, you know, it can turn you off.
Yeah, I agree.
At the same time, even being where I am in YouTube and having like my established circle and basically, you know, and I'm sure you have a bunch of fans that would love to play with you, that would be willing to play, that hit you up.
No, dude, my subscribers hate me.
Classic. But even that, like, there's been times when I've been playing Infinite and like doing ranked or something, and I have voice chat on and I encounter like a really cool group of people. Or like someone that recognizes me that I want to keep playing with, and then the match ends and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot this doesn't continue, and then I forget like what their gamer tag was.
A happy balance, I think, is what it needs. It can't be as unfiltered as the MW2 days, but a happy balance, I think, is important.
Yeah, exactly.
HM with the Potato Gamer says Infinite should try bringing in new weapons in future updates rather than bringing in weapons from older titles. Oh, this is a tough one.
Yeah, if it comes down to one or the other, I would agree. We have seen a bunch of old weapons. We've played these old Halo games. There's a certain element to... or there's a certain safety in doing what's established and what's familiar and what we've already used before. Like I want Infinite to add the fuel rod gun. Of course, I love that fucking thing. Give it a new bell and whistle too. As for what should be a higher priority, I think new weapons is great to explore because now we have this sandbox tool that nobody's really experimented with before. Kind of like how it took people some time to really figure out the shock rifle and like its kind of more specific snipe pattern. Yeah. And also things like the repulsor and the grapple shot. Whereas if you just throw the fuel rod back in, it's like, okay, yeah, it's the fuel rod. I know how it works and I know what it does. So I would agree. New weapons should be prioritized over older ones.
I think I'm gonna have to disagree. Yeah, and so this is a good question. I think this might be one of my favorite questions on this whole series just yet. Because initially when I read it, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, yeah, new weapons, that sounds good. And then I really started thinking about it. At this point, I've kind of analyzed and reviewed a lot of the new weapons in Halo Infinite, and what I have found each time is that a lot of these new weapons are basically just one or two old weapons put together. Like, the shock rifle is just a perversion of the Halo 5 binary rifle. The heat wave is taking a scatter shot function and kind of ramping it up. It doesn't feel like a lot of these new weapons are actually doing anything too new. And then I really think about Halo's very storied weapon sandbox across all its titles. And I think with the pure volume of weapons from the past, you could still achieve a highly varied gameplay experience, a very varied sandbox, just with what we already have, if it actually was allowed to coexist. And that's the big thing, is that previously Halo's weapon sandboxes have been very segregated, and there's not too much overlap. Halo 5 was the first game to really break that trend and allow older things to coexist with their newer partners or just exist in new spaces altogether. Infinite, I think, should continue that trend, bring in some of the standout characters, some of the standout weapons from previous games, like the grenade launcher, for example, or the incineration cannon, or the plasma caster. There's all these standout weapons that are just locked behind, the gates of time. And they could fill in those roles that a new weapon would probably just rip those functions from those weapons anyways. So I think I'm gonna have to disagree. That's strange, and that's a little bit of a flip flop for me versus my initial reaction.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I would love to see like dual wielding re-implemented in some capacity. I feel like that would just kind of be a nightmare to balance and to make it fun and feel good. But
well, if you're not worried about balance, I should always say that too when I talk, like, at the end of the day, if you're not worried about balance, fuck, anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, we can put
anything in this game.
If you control the main multiplayer and what weapons spawn on what map, but you don't have to have dual wielding in anything. That's
a good point. Yeah, and that's also another concept that Halo 5 was knocking on the door on. Later in Halo 5's lifespan, 343 just kind of said, "Oh, we'll put it in the game. Who cares if it makes it to matchmaking, right? You want to put it on your Forge map? Feel free.
You want to use it in Warzone? That's kind of like the.
You can use it in Warzone. Yeah, feel free.
That's like the go crazy. You can do anything. You can get 3 speed boosts and run around super fast with a sword.
Yeah, with the sword, that is the stuff. I mean, when you think about it, that is. We kind of make fun of Warzone for doing that, but that was, I would say, the first time in Halo's entire franchise history where in a matchmaking experience, the shackles were just taken off. Like, it was no holds barred. It was like, this combines with this. This is a synergy. This matches up. This does this. Feel free to dominate this team 2000-4,
Yeah.
And I understand if you're on the team scoring 4 side of that, it's not that fun. But to have the sandbox be so unleashed, it'd be cool if eventually, and this is probably something Infinite won't see, if at all, for like a couple years. But if we get to a point where this game has an inundated sandbox, I would love to see a no holds barred mode and just say, go the fuck at it. And if you lose, you lose.
Yeah.
It'll only be a little bit, man. The Halo cycle is already starting to kick in a little bit. It won't be too long before people start saying, man, remember Warzone? Yeah. Man, you remember the whispered truth? You remember the answer?
Oh my god, we're saying it now.
Yeah. That was a series of Halo takes. Big thanks to the Act Man for joining me on Let's Argue. All his socials and main channel are linked below if you need it. If you're not one of his 1.5 million subscribers already, anyway.
I think we're closing in on 1.3.
Oh, okay. Let's say I round it. I'm predicting you'll gain another 200,000 coming off this video. Like always, if you want to participate in Let's Argue, all you have to do really is follow me on Twitter. I post threads for Let's Argue every other week or so. You can drop your Halo takes there, and you might be featured on this series. Thanks again to the Act Man. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and until next time, I'll catch y'all later.
Peace.